guys, welcome to Serious Laughs. This is episode 11, an out-of-body experience while under anesthesia. What if reality is only a small piece of the bigger picture?
Can we alter our perception of our present by looking through the lens of the past? I'm Sherry, and I have two sons whose feet I no longer wish to smell.
Oh, well, hey guys, I'm Molly. I have two pugs, and I like to smell their feet. Because they smell like burritos. We talked about this with George Moreno. Sherry and Steve. Sherry, introduce our guests. I'm so excited about this topic.
I love you, Steve Bernstein, famous author of Stories from the Stoop, amazing educator, amazing writer, memoirist specifically, and a really engaging speaker, because I think you have that X factor. You have that je ne sais quoi. You're authentic. There's no bullshit to you. What you see is what you get. But what we get are lots of layers. So it's no surprise to me, Molly, that Steve has come in today to talk about his experience while under anesthesia, where he bilocated, guys. He was on an operating table having surgery on his second knee. But simultaneously, he was in the Bronx back to the 1960s. I think it was 1968 in August. And you met your 14-year-old self, and you're going to tell us all about that. So a warm, warm welcome to you. It's so good. I adore you, as you know. So we're going to start with those questions, and we're going to plug away, because the fact is people need to read your book, Stories from the Stoop, and what that's all about. I want to give you a chance to talk about that too. But we're going to get right into this. So you had this knee replacement that required going under anesthesia because of an incident that happened to you at the time of the surgery. 55 years earlier is when you bilocated. Can you share with us what happened when you went under anesthesia?
Yeah. I never heard the word bilocated, so thank you for sharing with me what I did.
Yeah, I researched it. When you told me, you're like, no, I met myself when I was 14. And I'm like, I looked that up, and there's a term called bilocating, where you're in two places at once.
Well,
It's fascinating.
I can't say exactly when during my going under this took place. When I came out of it, I remembered vividly. It could have been in that last minute. It could have been for the whole, 2 hours, whatever it was. But the surgeon, as they do, they get you talking. They want to make sure they're operating on the right knee. And in this case, it was my right knee. And ask you questions, have you count backwards. And in this case, in my story, the surgeon is a she, but in reality, he's a he. I just wanted to change it up a little bit. He, asked me where I was born. I said the Bronx. He said when. I said 1954. He said okay, and he said, and this is what I think cued me into my bilocation, which was when he said, so, where were you born? And I said the Bronx, and he said, and then I said, I really got thinking about my upbringing in the Bronx, and then I started counting backwards, and he didn't do numbers; he did the years. He said, "What date's today?" I said, "November 14th, 2023," and then he said, "Count backwards." So 2022, I was very relaxed. I felt nice. 2021, maybe a little buzzed, and then I was falling out. 2020, then. The last thing I said that he commented on was that he told me, did you by chance go to 1968? Because that was the very next year I counted after 2021 or 20, wherever I ended. And then I went into my world on that day and if this is related to bilocation or maybe reasons people bilocate, I don't know, but it was a day that I chose not to remember until I really wrote my book. And I needed, although the book was a fabulous writing experience and in some regards therapeutic, that particular day, those moments were really hard. That's when I revisited my 14-year-old self on a summer day in August 1968, doing what I did if I wasn't working. I went down to the schoolyard PS90 basketball court and I would shoot some hoops if I was lucky. And what I mean by that is, it was a tough neighborhood. And chances are I'm not going to be alone on the court, so I'll make the best of it, meaning, is there going to be fighting? Is there going to be, some hate going around, punches thrown? So, and do I have to make a quick getaway? That was kind of life, but it was always so much more appealing to me for two reasons. One is going down to the schoolyard, I got to avoid whatever shit was going on in my apartment, which was a drunken, rageful, alcoholic father who, underneath it all, was a really good man. He just was succumbed to the disease of alcoholism, and hence he was a violent alcoholic. So life in the apartment, should he be there, was not good, especially for me, because I was his chosen child to be more of that with. But the other thing was that why it was so appealing, regardless of the potential fighting, the racial tension, junkies shooting up, whatever it was, across the street from the schoolyard was the most beautiful, wonderful, perfect girl in the world. Her name is Elaine. I say is because I Googled her, 50 years later, and we talk every day, at least once. At any rate, she'd be up in her 5th floor window, right to the side of her fire escape, hanging out the window on a pillow or some kind of sheet or something. I'd see she'd be leaning out and waving to me, and I'd wave back, and that made my day. That was it. And that was, at the time, there wasn't much more we could do in a relationship because her mother was very strict and the neighborhood was very rough and she worried about her daughter. So we had this window thing going on, and it was just the best time of my life. I know it sounds corny, but I was 14.
Sounds wonderful.
I was 14, and our hearts were so intertwined and in love. And so this particular day that old Steve went to the schoolyard to see young Steve, because that was the moment that Steve needed to talk to Steve about, the old Steve needed to tell him, he's going to be okay. And the reason why he needed to do that, because on that particular day in the schoolyard, Elaine wasn't in the window. So already there's a damper on things. So I just decided to go and shoot some jump shots and maybe get some practice in, and then go up the block to where I lived. And my job was to clean my father's plumbing shop and walk Wolf, which is a story in my book who saved my life. He's a dog. And that was my job: clean the place up, get it organized, and take care of the dog. And I was about to do that. And the way to get into the schoolyard is you got to go through a hole in the fence. And as I was, kind of wrapping up, I see two guys, their name is Frankie and Robert, come through the hole in the fence, and two guys with them. And I was all alone in the schoolyard. And it didn't matter if I wasn't all alone, because I was basically the only white kid left. In that, through the 60s, white people fled these neighborhoods. But for a lot of reasons, my family did not. And so, and it gave me the most, no pun intended, colorful childhood you could ever imagine. And I am grateful for it. At any rate, Frankie and Robert, two Puerto Rican brothers who are leaders of a local branch of a Puerto Rican gang, and their two cousins came through the hole in the fence, and I was, Elaine wasn't up there, and I was just in this state of mind where, I knew some bad shit was going to go on. And so they came over to me because all summer, this is now August, all summer, they'd throw me a punch in the street, they'd give me a kick, they'd yell at me. Why? because there is no such thing as a white boy going out with a Puerto Rican girl on their watch. So I knew that. And I took the hits and I took the abuse. I never thought it would come to any more than that. And that day it did. That day they jumped me and dragged me around there was a corner pocket of the building that was secluded from the street, where they beat me up. And however, I got my licks in because on the way down to being thrown on the ground, I punched one guy in the jaw and I kicked the other guy in the balls. You said I could curse. So, but that was not good enough because Frankie had a baseball bat and hit me on each knee. And then they took off. And that's when old Steve comes in to see new Steve, bloodied up, crying, my back up against the brick wall of the school. Young Steve obviously didn't see old Steve, but old Steve really started talking to him and just kind of consoling him that life is going to be good. Right now, this moment, today, I'm getting a new knee. And life is going to be good for you. I guarantee it. Because I already had it. And my life was good. As good as I made it. But Steve, young Steve didn't hear me, I don't think, unless there was some other, phenomena that I don't know about going on. But he didn't indicate that he actually heard me. So I talked to Steve and I realized, my heart was breaking for him, but I was also hopeful. And I watched him leave the schoolyard, and he did look back once at the hoop where I was standing and just continued out. And the name of this story is The Secret is Love. And the reason why it's The Secret is Love is because after Steve, and I'll say me at this point, because this is a real moment in my life, crawled through the hole in the fence, Mr. Rivera across the street saw me and said, "It was those two punks that did this to you, wasn't it?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Come in, I'm going to give you some ice." Sweetest guy in the world. And he took care of me. And then I made it up the hill where I lived, up to my stoop. And I just sat down, and I was all bloody and beat up. And I decided to wait for my sister Amy, who I dearly loved, because she was coming home from City College. I think it was her first day. And I just waited for her. And she consoled me, but also asked if this was all worth it. And I said to Amy, "I love Elaine. We never had love in our home. We never had love in our lives. I would do it 1,000,000 times. This was nothing today." And she said, and she just took me upstairs and cleaned me up. And that was kind of the end of, that whole experience. And it's a love story. It's about a boy, a baseball bat, his sister, his girlfriend, and his knees. And I went back there. And the doctor. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Steve. I'm just curious. So as you're under anesthesia and you're going back and watching, I feel like this is like a Christmas Carol, right? When they all go back and they're looking in the past. And that always was so intriguing to me. Did you watch all of it up to the point where you were with your sister, or was it just that period in the basketball court that, old Steve was with young Steve?
What happened was old Steve left after he talked to young Steve. And
Gotcha.
But I was still watching, not really present, as young Steve went to my sister and felt her love. And I was able to express to her my feeling of deep love for Elaine and explain that I'd take this beating 1,000,000 times. It's not about that. It's about feeling love for the first time in my life. And I watched all that and then woke up.
Do you feel that that time with your sister on the stoop in your anesthesia bilocation state, when you say you articulated so profoundly to her, so she understood like love is all that matters, did you feel that back then she understood as well, or do you feel like she got it only or also that at that time when you visited the past?
We were, in today's terminology, would be considered at the very least neglected and in some circles abused children. There wasn't expression of love in our home, in our apartments, in our family. It was always strife and turmoil and trauma and drama. So Amy got it because she was on her way out at 17 years old, married at 18, just as I was later on, looking for love. She knew, and she heard me. And after I told her that, there was absolutely no conversation about whether it was worth it or not. She understood. And I think became the basis, our love for each other, me and Amy, became the basis of our relationship for the next 35 years till she died. And we expressed love to each other, not learned in our home, in our family, or elsewhere. It was a pretty cold and sad way, unloving world. But when I found Elaine and I felt that, yeah, I knew I had to pay a price. That's a sad reality I grew up with. Small price to pay.
So, Steve, do you feel like that moment or that event that happened when these boys smashed your knees in, horrible, is that when, I guess if we could split it up in Steve before the knee incident, this moment here, you realize love is the key. Is that where you had to switch? Is that where the switch happened? And if so, what was Steve before the accident?
Can we show
What was-
that quote we have? Do you want to read that, Steve? Do you want Molly to?
Oh, I'll read it. It's okay. Quote, "Take that, you white motherfucker. You want to be with a Puerto Rican girl. This is what you're going to get." Well, this is a mistake, Sherry. It's not Elaine's brother. He slams me twice, first the left knee and then the right. He drops the bat. That's when Steve says he's no longer watching his younger self. He's literally with him. Suddenly there were two Steves. Yeah. So Molly, what was your question basically?
Basically, before the incident, what was Steve like then? Because I feel like this is the moment, or is it the moment that you realize love is what it's all about?
Okay.
Yeah. What were you like before this, Steve?
Can you minimize this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That kid, good kid, friendly kid, tough kid, very tough kid, wouldn't back down from a fight, and there were plenty, and never a judgmental or even racist bone in my body, and fun-loving when there was fun to have, and responsible when I needed to be responsible. Just a really good all-round kid, but lacking love. Non-existent. No expressions of love, no hugging, no kissing, nothing like that, later in life I saw most people do, So that kid was a really good kid and a smart kid, and a street savvy kid, but above all, a nice young man. And then when I found Elaine and felt those new feelings, everything took second place as far as any hardships, shit with my father, shit on the street, shit in school. There was no more place or time that I felt strife that summer, even after that beatdown. Because that's what love, how powerful it is. For me, that's what it was for me. Does that answer
That's
your-
beautiful. That did. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And then how would you answer the question, who is Steve today?
Well, Steve became that exact same kid in a man's body. He became a very good adult. He brought his experience, strength, and hope to young people that he met in formal and informal ways to help them through their struggles. He became an animal rights activist. He got married a few times and unmarried. But I would say, whole. I certainly, I don't want to characterize my upbringing as hell, because it wasn't hell. It only looked like hell when I was an adult and looked back. But when I was a kid, this was a blast. This was an adventure. Bad days like that, yeah. But for the most part, had I not looked at life as exciting or adventurous, who knows what would have happened? It would have been dismal. So I still carry that mentality and attitude forward as a man in all my affairs. And I'm happy and I'm proud to be the man who came from that kid. I took
That's
care
beautiful.
of him to the end. I've looked out for my brother for most of his life. Me and my sister were as tight as two people could be until she passed. And, one day I decided to write this book. This book.
Stories from the stoop.
Yeah, and it's those stories of my life growing up. This story is in the book, among many others, of the challenges growing up in an adventure story form, and it's considered a memoir, and it takes you from about 12 or 13 years old to 17, and then a quantum leap that is very connected to my childhood to 9/11. So, and a beautiful, glorious bike trip is thrown in there at the end. That was my coming of age, I would say, in many ways.
It's a powerful story. And my son, Elliot, he read the book when, 3 years ago. He devoured it. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
I don't know how
I
it took.
love that book. I devoured it. I tried to savor it because you know how engaging Steve is, Molly. Just being here, that's the way his writing is. He draws you in like you're at a sleepover, like he's your best friend. You're sitting by the fire in your pajamas, and he's like, I got a story for you.
Oh,
And
yeah,
then-
that's how I felt about the one
Yeah.
you sent about
Yeah.
this. It was like, I was there.
Mm.
It just, yeah.
your authenticity just
Uh-huh.
brings us in. So we talked about this bilocating, and you're seeing yourself as this grown man you are now, and meeting your 14-year-old self. Why do you think you experienced this?
I know why. Because living my life, writing my book wasn't enough for me to really accept what happened to me. I've been a plumber all my life. I've been an athlete all my life, but I lived in pain every single day with both my knees. Many, minor surgeries until I finally did the major one. This pain, as many people could relate to, there's more to pain than just physical. We walk around with emotional pain. And this was a way that my higher power, whatever one wants to believe, I believe in something, allowed me to visit that most difficult day, that most difficult moment, and connect with me as a young man who needed somebody, something to connect to. Who better than the old me that says you're going to be okay, that says you're going to make it. You have love. What I meant, and when I told him that, is that girl up in the window. You found love in your life. This is the beginning of a good life, Steve. It's not just pain. And I meant that in all forms. So the physical manifestation of pain, okay, it was a good vehicle, especially on the day that I'm getting rid of it. I'm having it exorcised medically, surgically, but it's so much deeper than that. Giving myself permission to go visit that kid and tell him it's going to be okay. The pain is going to be gone, and you're going to be happy, and you're going to find love, and stick with it, because that's the secret more than anything else. Was I allowed to do that? Because I needed to.
Mm-hmm.
I had to. How else am I going to time travel? Anesthesia was a good vehicle. So
Yeah.
I'm very, very grateful. I'm
And
grateful.
we have another quote. There's been so much scientific research about what you've
Mhm.
gone through, that anesthesia has become this vehicle. Some people do drugs, recreational drugs. Some people find this through meditation, but this is a real concept that I think the world is starting to wake up to. This idea of this Earth School is a matrix in a way, and we can play inside the matrix. It looks and feels real, but it's much more pliable than we think. Do you want to read that to us?
Well, I just want to quick jump on that.
Yeah,
I listen
yeah.
to all kinds of weird podcasts, and I love this one called Otherworld. And it's so weird. I'm currently in it. I freaking finished it before we interviewed you, Steve, which I'm bummed about. But it's an interview with Dr. Bruce Grayson. I don't know if
Okay.
you've heard of this guy, but he is, and I'm going to tag Otherworld in this. He's one of the world's foremost experts on near-death experiences. And he does talk about this phenomenon in people who undergo anesthesia. And I mean, he cites some medical stuff. I started writing it down. I'm not going to even try to attempt to explain some of it, but it's just so fascinating because he talks about, brain activity and all this kind of stuff, and some experimenting they had done. And I don't know, you might find it interesting. I just love it because how many people say, "Gosh, if you could go back and tell your younger self something, what would you do?" You freaking did that.
Mm-hmm.
You goddamn did it.
Yeah.
Like, below my mind.
Yeah.
Well, I never knew. I've been under anesthesia before, but in this moment in my life, I needed to do this particular thing.
Yeah.
And
That's a good point. That's a good point. You've
never before. Even my first knee, nothing. Four other scopings, nothing. This was for me.
And I want to point out
but
something. I've spoken with you privately several times about you fighting through the years. You've been fighting. You're like, I'm gonna get these. You got these new sneakers. Do you remember? You're like, I'm gonna beat it. I'm gonna beat it. And you said something earlier, Steve, about there's the physical manifestation is only part. There's the layers. There's the emotional layers that go deep. So it's almost like the writing started to get everything flowing, but the physical pain was a symptom of a deeper problem that you weren't letting go. You were holding on to that pain of being back in that 14-year-old's body, getting your knees bashed. And then there's the physical symbolism of not being able to move forward. Your knees help you move forward.
Yes.
And you're like, no, I've moved forward. I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. And then, that surrender. And it's interesting to me also, I don't know if you saw, Molly, while Steve was talking in the beginning, and you talked about November 14th was your surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Today is November 15th.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah. Just, we didn't plan that. Like the synchronicity of it all.
I just want to tell people watching that this particular event and this story is not exactly in my book. This happened to me now. My book was written 7 years ago. What is in the book, in the romance part of my book, is that thing that happened to me. But what happened to me this year is this experience. And that's a story I wrote that I shared with Sherry and maybe Molly too.
Yeah.
After surgery, I wrote it. It was kind of kicking around. I said, I got to write this down. So, did you want me to read something? I forget. No. Okay.
Oh, do you want me to pull this slide up?
Yeah, it was just about. Yeah. Do you want to read that? This
I'll
is
read
really what you would. Yeah.
Okay. I'll read. Okay. Steve recalls a 69-year-old breaking for young Steve. He sat down next to him, his back against the brick wall on McLaren Street. It's going to be all right. I'm going to look out for you. We'll get through this. Listen, I know it's going to be a long haul, but today, this very moment, I'm getting our first new knee. It was my first new knee, Sherry. In a few months, we'll get the second one. You'll see. It's going to be a good life, and you'll have love in your life. Don't ever stop loving. That's the secret. Love. Don't forget. Yeah. And you know, it's not just my love for Elaine, which was, you know, out of this world, but it's love. We're loving beings. And if you're not brought up that way, you're not conditioned that way, your environment is not conducive to that, somehow or other, we need to get there. And then remember that's the secret of life. And that's how I feel. It's not just new knees.
It's very profound what you're sharing with all of us, because you're doing a mitzvah. You're doing a big deed, a good deed today for the world, because it would be one thing if you were to tell us love is the secret. It's all love. And you came from this home that was like, Leave It to Beaver, although that's a bad example because there was abuse on that set. But if your home life was perfect, if you wanted for nothing, if you only knew unconditional love, and you sat here today with us, talking to all of us, saying love is the secret. It's like, okay, well, yeah, it's easy for you to say, Mr. Rogers, but you came from not just your personal life with an alcoholic, abusive father, and a neglectful and absent mother. Sorry, but we'll get into that. Not just that, but you also grew up the only white Jewish kid in a Puerto Rican and African American neighborhood during the civil rights era. So it's like everything at once, everything coming at you at once.
But the beauty of youth is you don't know it.
Right.
You know, You look back as an adult and say, wow, I lived in historic times. I saw some incredible events and had relationships and friends and so-called mentors who, pulled me through. I didn't feel it at the time because I was just living it. And, with my mom, if anybody out there, and even you guys, know much about what's called the disease of alcoholism as it affects a family. My mother loved us.
Yeah.
Unconditionally, but was so strapped and tied down and victimized by this disease. And you notice I don't say my father because it's a disease. And I know my father loved us, and he demonstrated that the very few times in my life that I just knew for sure, that's the dad that I love. That's the dad that I want. And it seldom came to be, but at least I got to experience it. And in my book, you'll see the very profound reason why I experienced it in one of the stories. But I just have to say, it's not that there's no love. It just gets failed to be expressed. There's a difference. And when people are strapped and trapped and traumatized by their own childhoods, parents, let's say, man, it's a lot to ask for, to be loving and kind and warm and fuzzy. It just don't happen. But looking back, I know they tried their best and were in a very, very tough situation. And I knew that at a very young age and didn't look to them to be my parents after about 9 or 10 years old. I knew that, me and my sister both. It's in my book, by the way, that moment.
Can I allude to what's in your book for readers?
Sure.
So Steve's mom at one point says she makes them homemade cookies, Stories in the Soup. She makes them cookies, oatmeal raisin or oatmeal cookies.
Oatmeal raisin.
Oatmeal raisin. You're like 9 years old at the time?
I'm 9, Amy's 12.
And he's eating the cookies and she says, I can no longer be your mother.
Right. Quote, end quote.
And your sister Amy took it in a very different light than you did.
Right.
And the reason I point that out is the power we have over our perceptions. For anyone listening, your mother says that to her kids. How do you take that? And do you want to share? I don't want to take it away.
Real briefly is the way I think and talk and write. Amy felt lost. I felt released and relieved. I didn't have to look for it anymore. I didn't have to look and be disappointed by a mom who tried desperately to be our mom but couldn't be. And I, as a young little kid, was looking for it. Amy, on the other hand, was a few years older than me and had experienced a safer Bronx and a safer home life because things radically changed when I was born and thereafter. And she was always looking for that to the day she died. Aww. And so, yeah, that's what my mom said that day. But at least we had the cookies.
I want us to timestamp when Steve said that. It's not that there's no love. It just fails to be expressed.
Don't worry, I already did because that was very profound.
Isn't it? You see, Molly, we are on the same length of the wave.
Yo,
why are you talking like that?
She's with me, that's why.
He does it to me. He affects me. Where'd my fag go? Where's my fag? I can't find my fag.
Your fag. Yeah, I time sent that as well. That was
really
I'd never heard that before.
Yeah.
I'd never heard that before.
Think about our human frailties. Think about how most everything in good, loving, good-natured people just failed to get expressed because maybe we don't know how. Maybe we weren't taught. Maybe we weren't shown. And then maybe that's a legacy in itself that gets passed on to children. It was the hardest thing for me and Amy in our 30s, maybe, who we started giving each other a hug. Wasn't done. I reach out to my brother these days, and that's, we're in I'm 70, and he's in his 60s, and it's like, once in a while, I reach out and give him a hug. It's just not comfortable, but at the same time, it's the most natural thing in the world. And that's the dichotomy of growing up like this. What's familiar, what's comfortable. Well,
do you find, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Do you find that it's most uncomfortable with your brother? Is it easier for you to express your love to people who have experienced it before?
When I was coming up in the world as a young man, I had the very, very infinite good fortune to, there's a story there, which we don't have time for today, but the good fortune to become part of the 12-step program. In the 12-step program, specifically, people who come from a family of the disease of alcoholism, not necessarily substance abusers themselves, it's a very, very common theme. This lack of love, lack of expression of love, because everybody's so emotionally damaged.
Hmm.
So in that time, which was, I think I was 23 or 24 years old, to be honest with you, and it's been with me ever since, people would hug each other. And I'd go out of the room. It's like, what the hell is that? And then after a while, that became family and natural. And then, yes, I do it a lot to people who are not family, but I don't have much family left. It's just me and my brother now, biologically. But everybody is family to me who I love and care for, and they me. And there's some hugging that goes on. So I'm grateful for that.
Cool. Love that.
Holly, you want to ask? We had one more
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. Sherry put this one together. I love it. Mark Twain said to write what you know about. So you've written short stories and narratives based on your life experiences, we're learning, particularly growing up in the Bronx during the civil rights era, only white kid and Jewish kid in an abusive home in the neighborhood. So what is your hope for readers of your work? And what is the message behind your narratives? What's your hope for the readers? We'll start with that question.
Well, I think like with anything that gets read or seen in a movie or somehow put out to the world, the observer, the audience, the readership is going to have inevitably some kind of judgments. Not from the reading necessarily, because in my case, people's eyes open up like in 10 seconds to a whole new dimension from what they thought they were going to read. And that's my design. So, yeah, I might be identified as a white man, a Jewish guy, a guy from New York, a guy from the Bronx, tough guy, nice guy, sweet guy, cute guy, whatever. But I must get beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
I must get below that and underneath that and above that. And the only way I found to really, in a real, I'd say deep way, is through my writing. And as Sherry knows, I'm not an experienced writer. I started, I got this book out the first year I went to my first writing group. I started when I was 60. So it's only 10 years ago. And like I said, I was a blue collar guy. Judge me if you will. But at the same time, it's my vehicle to show not only my life and what's under the underpinnings of me, which is important to me in the world. I really want people to know me, not in judgmental, superficial ways, but I also want to show them, those who are paying a certain type of attention to my words, that this is about their life too. Mm-hmm. There is a universality to my stories, even though it's particular to the South Bronx, particular to the 60s, particular to this white kid in black neighborhoods. People have first romances. Mm-hmm. People fall in love and they have those feelings. People face fearful things. A lot of people come from tough childhoods. A lot of people come from tough families and parenting. I want to show the world that there are ways that we can show who we are and invite you to be who you are. Mm. And that's what I believe my writing is about. Sure, I write some cool stories. You know, this one in particular, what we talked about today, that's the last story I wrote, and that's going on a year now, because I just needed a break to take care of my knees and kind of be in another space. But I write some cool stuff as stories go, but I'm asking my readership, and it might be too much to ask, what's the bigger story here? Where do I fit in this kind of fabric of life? I want people to think about that personally. because I might have a particular story, but it's a human story, and we all have them. And I'm just asking you to go deep.
Hmm.
Just keep it short. Less is best, but put value in your past, in your childhood, in your family, in your environment. What are you learning? What are you seeing? What are you feeling? Try to get it down. I'd be so happy to know that people either write differently after meeting me in various ways or started writing, because I started late in life. You know, I didn't start living late in life. I lived all my life, but I started writing late in life. But I had the benefit of a colorful life, and also a life where I felt very comfortable telling stories orally. And then the day came where let me try writing, because I want a record. I want a document. So that's my message.
That's a solid message.
Yeah, profound. I think they're crickets because we're just taking it all in. You're profound, Steve. You're just
Yeah, but Sherry, you got to admit, I'm pretty simple. I try to keep,
but aren't sometimes the most simple things the most profound?
no,
You know,
no,
you're the Buddha Bronx for a human body. I had to get in an alliteration.
okay,
Oh boy.
that's called an alliteration.
An alliteration.
Okay.
Alliteration. I want everyone, and I know Molly wants the same thing, to get a copy of Stories from the Stoop. Where can they find you? There we are. And we're talking about making this into a movie. So
You're gonna be my
I was gonna say that.
yeah.
You're gonna be my mother, Sherry. You promised.
I have the oatmeal cookies ready.
No, you are such a great mom. I don't think you're gonna be able to utter that line. Maybe I'm wrong.
She's
I can
also
do
a
it
great
because it's
actress.
acting. Yeah.
She's a great actress.
Okay.
So is Molly. Molly is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Her work has won awards, and we have directors. So we're gonna try and make that happen. No, we are.
I would love
going
to see
make
that happen, Steve.
Do we have a part for her, Sherry?
Amy?
Ooh,
Oh.
too old. Too old. That's
Yeah,
sister,
but-
right?
Yeah, but the movie might go into adult life.
Okay, maybe an older life. Yeah.
You could do the dance scene with the French fries.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
They
I'm
did the 70s boogie woogie.
Aw.
Disco.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool.
And
So
Molly has ample dogs, so Wolf, we're ready.
lots of paws to smell.
Stories
So
from the
I
Stoop. And if we want this Frito chip loving paw dog smelling man, Steve Bernstein, to do a talk, where can they reach you?
www.stevebernsteinauthor.com will get to me, or stevebernsteinauthor@gmail will get to me, or talk to Sherry and she'll get to me.
And Steve, the book, can we get that on Amazon or through your website?
It's at Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and in my area, local bookstores, but mainly I think more accessible on Amazon. And also, I want to
Okay.
add something. If anybody likes the sound of my voice, I did the audio right after I wrote the book. So there's an
Cool.
audio on Amazon you could get, and I'm told it's quite good.
Well, you have a very welcoming voice.
Mm-hmm.
Your
Mm.
voice is
Very
like a
resonates
warm
too.
jacket on a cold day. You know, it's
Ooh.
like fresh from the dryer.
Oh my, she's a writer. You see that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. If I could be so eloquent with my words.
You are eloquent. Look what you did, poetry. You came up with the Frito-Lay feet for your dog's paws. My God, if that's not poetry, I don't know what is.
That's
Where's my
insanity,
bag?
Sherry.
I
That's what
lost
that
my
is.
bag.
Molly, try to do a haiku on that one. Okay, that might be a good one.
Okay.
17 syllables or something.
757. But you also posted about, well, I was an English teacher for quite a spell.
I
But
love it.
I saw you posted on social media about a haiku. And what I love about Steve is he's like, I don't fucking give a crap if I didn't follow the haiku format.
That's
was-
a Bernstein haiku. That's what that was.
I was
what
going
was
to say, did it follow the 575 or 75?
I don't know, Sherry, did it? I don't really know.
I
the
don't
rules.
remember. I don't remember.
That's
What
awesome.
struck me was your personality. Like, I don't give a, like, you're a good person and you don't follow the rules. You follow your heart.
Even better.
You know what I'm saying?
I do. Sherry, I'll take it a step further. I don't even know there are rules.
Oh,
That's
Dun,
what
dun, dun.
inspired me.
Steve, we will put all of these links up
Okay.
for people, and we really encourage everybody to go get this book. I'm excited to read these stories. And thank you so
and
much for
he
coming
does
in.
speaking engagements about
Yep.
the stories, about
That-
writing,
And if you
finding
get
your
on my-
story,
if you
story
get on my-
workshops.
when Sherry's done,
Yeah.
if you get on my website, I have things posted there that are quite funny, which could be interesting to writers, particularly because I dispelled with the myth, at least in my life, and maybe as an example to others, that you don't really need agents to get published. And have me back someday, because that could be a show unto itself.
Okay.
As to my path, as a writer, but also to publishing. It's pretty funny, but I make it funny because I know a lot of people are struggling with that. But and like I said before, maybe the reason it came easy to me is because I didn't give a shit about publishing, and it kind of fell into my lap. And I want to tell that story to writers. I don't want them to hate me for feeling like this is a Cinderella story, but on the other hand, I've seen so many dragged down, trying, and it's like we said earlier with the rules. Well, we make up our own rules, basically. So that's a story I'd love to share with you guys.
Well, we do relationships on here, and that's a relationship between the writer and the publisher, the publishing industry.
And
I'd like to tune into that one.
Ultimately, it's a story about the relationship between the writer and herself. That's really what I'd like to convey.
Cool.
Which is really analogous to life.
Totally.
Well, let's say this then. Until next time, Steve.
See you later, not goodbye.
Hey, Steve, thanks for coming by. That's a wrap. Remember, when everything's going wrong, it just means you're crafting a great story. Stay tuned for more episodes where we turn life's lemons into laughable tales. Don't forget to like and subscribe and keep finding the best in the worst, because life's too ridiculous not to laugh at it.